Now broadcasting on Star Worldwide Networks, it's Healthy Senior Living with Smiles by Delivery. Healthy Senior Living explores all aspects of creating a happy and healthy senior lifestyle. As the premier mobile dental practice in Arizona, we have mastered the art of delivering the highest quality dental services in our patients' homes. This show will bring you an engaging and ongoing discussion with the leading voices in the field about the best options and strategies available to help seniors live healthy and comfortable lives. And now it's time for Healthy Senior Living with Smiles by Delivery.
Welcome to Healthy Senior Living with Smiles by Delivery. This is Michele Trent, and I will be hosting this show today. I don't have my co-host today because my co-host today, Roger Downey, is actually the guest for today. So this is an exciting format twist we've had. I was being interviewed by Roger last week. I'd say he was pretty kind and gracious to me, and I, on the other hand, am going to be really, that's tough. I'm gonna play the role of investigative reporter. See what we can uncover about Roger Downey today. But before I get there, I just want to acknowledge Smiles by Delivery, because Smiles by Delivery is the reason that we have Healthy Senior Living. And Smiles by Delivery, we may take this for granted, but they're actually the Valley's #1 source for mobile dentistry. So if you want mobile dentistry that is delivered to you in your home, and for seniors that means maybe their assisted living community that they're in, then consider Smiles by Delivery. They make it incredibly convenient, which is so great for those who maybe aren't as able to get out and about as they once could. And certainly in these temperatures, it's always nice to be able to stay inside and have a convenience of a service brought to you. But consider it this way. They are wherever you are, they are. That's how it is with Smiles by Delivery. So you can't get more convenient for that. And as we've talked about many times, having good dental care leads to better overall health, because so many things that are happening with the mouth can be indicative of bigger healthcare problems or can lead to bigger healthcare problems. So Smiles by Delivery, and you can check them out on their website at smilesbydelivery.com. And now let's get to that point in the show that I talked about of where Michele Trent grills Roger Downey on his history.
Uh-oh.
So, yeah, I am, Roger, it's been such a pleasure to get to work with you. You're such a professional in what you do. And for anybody who's been in the Valley for a number of years, your name, your face, your voice is familiar with them because you were on one of the prominent stations for quite a while. But I think what we'd like to know is, you just didn't automatically land there. No. I mean, what was it? How did you get into this business to begin with? Give us the struggling Roger Downey and how he made his way into broadcast journalism.
Well, I guess it started in high school. I'd always been interested in radio, as a kid, listening to the DJs and the news guys on radio. Yeah. When I started high school, I went to an all-boys high school. And the homeroom teacher happened to be a speech coach, and his particular specialty was radio speaking. And I said, I'll do that. And I was always interested in radio. So I started doing that. He coached me well. I learned a lot. I did well, won some awards at speech contests. Then left it for a while. I did extemporaneous speaking for a while. I did a lot of high school plays. I was in drama. I did a lot of that. I directed some plays. I was really involved in high school. And then finally, when I decided to go to college, I chose St. Louis University because it had a campus radio station. And the first day I was on campus to go to college, I went to the radio station and signed up. I wanted to be on the air in that radio station. And eventually I became the station manager of that station. So you progress as you go. The thing that was different, I guess, for me was from the point of about 12 or 13 years of age, I knew what I wanted to do, and I focused on doing what it needed to be done to get there. So, you make contacts in college, you network, you learn about job openings. I found a radio station across the river in Illinois and worked for them for a while. then actually went to work for another station in the same community as a news person. The other job was more or less just doing station IDs and occasional newscasts. And when I went to work for the other station, it was more of a news gathering news station. They were trying to, provide news coverage for the Southern Illinois area. I was working there, and we can go on and on about this, but the progression is that I ended up getting a job in Phoenix, Arizona, sight unseen. I'd never been to Phoenix, accepted a job, came to Phoenix, worked for a radio station, All News, KPHO Radio at the time, which was then sold and became Country Western. Mm-hmm. And then after that, there was a year or so that I worked for a Daytimer, which was a station that was only on in the daytime. And then after that, I was hired to be the news director at KTAR Radio, and I helped transition that from music to All News. So it's All News or Talk Today because I was there and did that. Not to toot my own horn about that, I was hired to do that, okay? It wasn't like it was my idea. And then when the radio seemed to, peter out as far as that goes, I was told I was no longer needed after 4 years at the radio station. I went to work part-time for Channel 5. I had made friends with the news director at that point, and so he said, yeah, come on over, we'll talk about it. So he hired me as a part-time reporter and assignment editor for weekends. And I did that for about 3 or 4 months until an opening occurred, and then he hired me full-time. So that's the progression. I went to work for Channel 5, worked there for 25 years. After 3 years, I was a news anchor and, stayed there until 2002. The multiple changes in the news directors, the station managers, so they, eventually that caught up with me. I became 55 and expendable. And so went to work at the Arizona Medical Board as their public relations officer. But that was after I worked for NBC Burbank. I was a producer and correspondent for NBC for about 2 years. But that was a difficult situation because you'd be busy for 2 weeks and then you'd do nothing for 2 weeks. Wait for the phone call and you could never say no. So that's when I went to work for the medical board. Did that for 5 years, then the budget went south, state budget. I was told I was not in a mission, I was expendable, let's put it that way. So that's when I had made friends with a fellow who had been starting this company in Scottsdale, a telemedicine company. And I called him and told him, just get my name out there if anybody's interested. And he said, well, I'll hire you. So I went to work for him as their communications manager and did that for 8 years and then retired last year. So that brings you kind of to the current situation.
I love when we have a chance to look back over someone's evolution of their career, their life, and how just each opportunity sort of leads itself to the next opportunity. But one of the things that I want to point out is you are more than just a pretty face, Roger. You knew what you wanted to do early on in high school, which is so rare, and you committed to it and you worked hard, and obviously it was noted because it was just kind of one opportunity after another, and maybe some of those kind of disguised themselves when you were sort of expendable, but then that kind of led to the next opportunity for you being in television in what's a very large market in the United States.
Right, and it's a different kind of industry today than when I worked in it. It's more cutthroat and more competitive than it ever has been. You can't blink. That's too long on television, because now they want 1 or 2 second edits so that everything moves at the speed of sound. It's almost as if people don't have an attention span anymore. Mm-hmm. And you really can't get into news like you could in the past. So in a sense, I'm kind of glad I did it, and I'm kind of glad that I'm out of it because I don't have to put up with also the political issues that happen in the newsroom. And that's really what I don't miss. I do miss the people, and again, those people are pretty much gone too. So it's sort of interesting. The turnover in television and even radio is big. There are probably less than 5 people at Channel 5 that were there when I was there 16 years ago. And that number dwindles every year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a crazy business for sure. You mentioned us not having attention span, and I remember a study came out, I think it was in 2014, that said that people actually officially have attention spans that are less than a goldfish. So people are like 8, a goldfish is like 9 seconds or something like that. But tell us a little bit about maybe something that you did that probably only happened because you were in news. One of the things that I think is amazing in news is that you have sort of a behind the scenes, or you have the ability to connect with people that just ordinary citizens don't, right? You just have some opportunities which are extended to you in order to get the story. So maybe tell us about one of those experiences that really stuck with you.
There are a number of ones. I remember I had been on here in Phoenix for 16 years, so that would have meant I was on television for about 7 or 8 years, or maybe even 9 years. And in 1970, when I moved to Arizona, I grew a mustache. And I kept that mustache even when I went to work for the TV station. But in 1986, the news director called me into his office and he said, it was like he was beating around the bush. He didn't know how to actually ask the question. And he finally said, do you really want to wear that mustache? And I said, oh, you want me to shave it off today? I'll shave it off today. No, don't you shave it off now. We've got billboards up with you with a mustache. But he said, when those billboards come down, sure, shave the mustache off. So I did that. I waited until it was time. I get a phone call after I'm off the air, the first day that I have done a newscast without the mustache. And it's an elderly woman, and I don't know, she must have been in her 80s, and she said, why did you shave that mustache off? And I said, well, there are a number of reasons. I mean, after 16 years, She said, well, kissing a man without a mustache is like eating an egg without salt. And I thought, exactly what does that mean? I don't know where to go with that, but that was one thing that was kind of interesting. We always had trouble with giggles. You if it starts, you can't stop.
Yes.
And there were occasions where both of us, either with Linda Turley or Chris Cochran and I, those were my 2 co-anchors, we would get the giggles. And it was impossible to control. And I remember this one day, there was a story from someplace back east, and this was cold. It was cold back east. And the reporter was wearing this hat, and it was one of those hats that has the flaps up and you pull the flaps down kind of thing. Uh-huh. And it really looked silly. And we came back, and my co-anchor said something, and I just lost it because I said, that hat, At any rate, many things have happened on the air and off the air. We could sit here all day and I could talk about them. They're not really meaningful to anybody else but me. So.
Well, I would beg to differ, as I found that really interesting. I had never heard the phrase like kissing a man without a mustache is like eating a boiled egg without salt, and now I'll probably never forget that. But I think those are the kind of behind the scenes, because what people see when they tune into the news, of course, are these professionals that are delivering hard hitting and serious communication to us. So it's always kind of fun to be able to peek behind the curtain and see what really happened, and to think that you guys were getting giggles there at some point on the set is pretty amusing.
Well, and there were occasions too where things occurred that were not scripted. Let's put it that way. We used to do this thing at the very beginning of a newscast where we would do like 3 headlines and then say that's first on News 5 kind of thing, and then we would go into the show open. The script wasn't down in time. I'm sitting there on set wondering, where's the script? Where's the script? Finally, the producer runs into the studio from the control room, hands me this piece of paper just as I'm supposed to start speaking. And I look down and I say something like, Phoenix City Council, let's see, what was it? there was a word missing.
Oh, no.
And it didn't make sense. But I read it like I knew what I was saying. And, I'm sure people didn't pick up on it. And then I went, what the heck did I just say? Kind of thing.
But the show must go on, and you learned that from theater way back in high school.
Yeah. I got the most enjoyment when we had to do live stuff without a script. That, to me, was so much fun. I enjoyed that so much because it was like walking up to the edge of a cliff and looking down and knowing that there's no net. It's up to you. That, to me, was the high point of any newscast where we had that situation occur.
Which I'm sure is why you like Healthy Senior Living, because you never know what's going to happen here. You never know what's going to come out of my mouth that you have to react to.
That's right.
But right now, here's what we do know is we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about what Roger Downey is doing today.
Healthy Senior Living will be back right after this.
Where do you go for your news each day? A lot of people use the Drudge Report because they want quick access to the latest stories. You can link to a lot of articles there, but very few about what many people consider important: healthcare. Introducing My Healthcare Report. My Healthcare Report gives readers access to the most important and timely news anywhere about health and healthcare, and without the politics. Visit www.myhealthcarereport.com today and search through the most timely and comprehensive collection of healthcare stories on the web.
Have you ever wished you knew the story of your great-grandparents, or maybe even your own parents? Hearing personal stories is an irreplaceable way of understanding our loved ones. Recording your story is a precious gift for future generations. Now there's a simple option for getting it done. Remembered Well is an audio recording service that easily preserves your cherished memories. In a few guided conversations, owner and personal historian Michele Trent will help uncover your family's unique story. This custom narrative is then professionally edited, digitally preserved, and ready to share for generations. It's your story, told your way. Find out more at rememberedwell.com. Now, back to Healthy Senior Living with Smiles by Delivery.
Welcome back to Healthy Senior Living. I'm Michele Trent, and I'm joined with my co-host, Roger Downey. At least he's usually my co-host, but today he's actually the guest. And what we're going to talk about now, we talked a little bit about his storied career in broadcast, and also he's done all kinds of things. But we want to get to what he's doing today. One of the things that he alluded to is that he retired once, then kind of came out of retirement, then he retired again. And I think retirement really should probably just be stricken from your vocabulary, Roger.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
If there's anything that I learned when I was 55 was that retirement isn't all that it's cracked up to be.
Overrated, huh?
Yeah, overrated.
Yeah. So tell us about what you're doing today.
Well, I have a website. It's called myhealthcarereport.com. Mm-hmm. And the idea behind the website is to do what the Drudge Report does for regular news, and that is to do an aggregate news site where you will find links to the top stories in healthcare on a daily basis. So that's the purpose and the premise of My Healthcare Report. And I call it My Healthcare Report because it's my healthcare report. That's what I do with this thing every day. Mm-hmm. But I also want people, when they tell somebody where they saw something about a story in healthcare, where did you see that? I saw it on myhealthcarereport.com. So it gives them some ownership.
Mm-hmm. And who is it that you're targeting? Who is most likely to come to your website and check out the information that you provide?
I would like to say that it would be hospital executives and doctors and nurses and physician assistants and that kind of thing. But I would say it's primarily aimed at the general audience. There are stories on there that are important in a sense to know. If you're just, if you're not in healthcare, then there are stories that are important to know if you are in healthcare. What I've tried to do is divide this up into three sections because I know that trying to read headlines all in one long list doesn't work. So what I've done is I've created 3 columns, and each column has headlines that are links to the original story at the original website. So, for example, the first column is trending stories. Now, these will be stories about the latest breakthroughs in disease, what's going on in the flu. When should we get our flu shot and why? And we all should get our flu shot, by the way. Latest on Alzheimer's. We talk about healthy senior living. Sometimes you're a caregiver and you want to know what's going on in the world of not only research, but also how to be a good caregiver. So occasionally there will be stories about that. The middle column is technology and research. A lot of technology now is being used in medicine simply because it works in medicine. And we're talking about telemedicine, telehealth. Artificial intelligence is playing an increasingly large role. CRISPR, which is the ability to edit genes. Now we're down at the genetic level to try to cure disease. Those are the kinds of things you'll find in the middle column. And then, of course, in healthcare business, well, hospitals are merging these days. Changes are coming. Urgent care. Nobody knew about urgent care until about 8 or 9 years ago. We all went to the emergency room. Now they're trying to get us to stop going to the emergency room unless it's a life-threatening emergency. And hospitals don't keep you for a week. They keep you for a day or two, and if you can walk, they want you out of there. Or if you can leave, they want you to leave because they aren't getting the reimbursement they used to get from insurance companies and from the government, from Medicare. So that's the idea. By the way, those headlines change every day. There's so much material out there. So only recently, in the last 2 weeks, have I created an archive so that if you go to myhealthcarereport.com today and you saw a story last week and you thought, gosh, I wish I could remember where that story was and that kind of thing, now just click on the headline of the column, trending stories, technology and research, or healthcare business, and it takes you to a subpage where you can see the last 2 weeks of links. You'll have to search, obviously. There are a lot of links, but at least it's there, and you spend some time, you can find it.
What struck me most when I went to myhealthcarereport.com was just how robust it is. There is a lot of content, and I'm an information junkie, so I click to one story and then I click to another and then I click to another. I mean, you can spend quite a bit of time there because there's so much content. But for you, Roger, how do you get all this content? How do you sort through it? How do you decide what to put and in what column? I mean, how do you do that as one person? How does that happen?
Well, first of all, it's fun being the editor. I enjoy that. I like being the person in charge of deciding what's important because I think I know what's important, and I think I know what's important to people who come to the website. It's a I'd probably say 4-hour process each day to examine the various email, newsletters, websites that I go to on a daily basis and basically look for stories that I think are of interest. And what's interesting is that what people think are interesting oftentimes are not interesting. And one thing I've tried to do is keep the politics out of it. Politics, to me, are the things that discourage people because they don't want to be reminded about politics today. They want to go someplace and learn what they want to know about healthcare without somebody telling them what the agenda should be. So, and we found out last week for the Emmy Awards, how the Emmy Awards has lost like 10% of its viewership, and part of the reason is the political aspect that they bring up on all these award shows. All of these award shows are losing audience because they continue to bring up politics. If there's anything that turns people off, it's politics. So when you go to My Healthcare Report, you won't find a story that deals in politics.
So you mentioned something about the things that people find interesting are often not interesting. What do you mean by that?
Well, you could go pretty deep in the healthcare research area. I don't think researchers have ever seen a headline that is shorter than 4 lines long. So, and it, they have to be very specific, but they're using language that you and I would never use. We're not interested in a specific problem that affects a small group of people in Indonesia, for example. But who knows, that might be really a game changer for the rest of us. But what we need is someone who reads that and can interpret that and put it in layman's language. So what I do is I wait for those opportunities. I wait for the people who take those articles, those very technical articles, boil them down to language and to a point where we can understand them and it's of interest to us. And that's what, there are some articles that are interesting, others that aren't.
Got it. It's really great that you're sort of providing that filter because for all the reasons that we mentioned, there's so much information out there, and how do you get your hands wrapped around it? So I find it very interesting that you're kind of combing through these different resources and really making it just this collective place, this website where people can go to get that information that they might need instead of them trying to sort through all these different websites. So I'd really encourage anybody who's looking for something specific in healthcare to go to myhealthcarereport.com and see what they can find up in there, because there is, again, so much content that's there. And what have you heard from folks that have done that very thing? They've found your website and they found just what they needed. What has been the feedback that you've received?
I have gotten nothing but positive feedback. The only bit of little negative feedback has come from people saying initially, we don't like the font, that kind of thing. It's hard to read, so we've changed the font. I also was able, with the help of my web designer, to be able to highlight stories in red so that, not only do you see the top story link of the day at the top, but then, at the very top of each column, or it could even be lower than that. If I see an interesting article, but it's not the most important article, I'll highlight it in red so that you don't miss it. I don't really want to go into it, but there are some articles that you wouldn't discuss in polite conversation, but you're still interested in the topic. That's also part of my healthcare report. So, I don't hold those back. If there's an interesting topic that you wouldn't discuss in mixed company, but still would like to know, you'll find it there.
Mm-hmm. So you're doing a little bit of filtering, again, taking out some of the politics, trying to make sure that's in layman's term, but you're still you're serving up content, and then it's up for the user to sort of sort through what it is that they want to take in. And again, having visited my healthcare report, I know that it's so easy to get just sucked into the content that's there. It's from one story to another because it is a very robust website. Just really briefly, Roger, what do you see on the horizon for myhealthcarereport.com?
I've thought about making more of more subpages. I've thought about pages devoted to specific medical specialties. And these would be articles that obviously would stay up there longer than a day or a couple of weeks. These would be articles that would be of benefit not only to the medical community, but to people who had, let's say yesterday, developed some kind of medical issue and wanted to learn more about it and didn't want to have to go to Google all the time and try to find articles that are of value and that they could understand. That's the other thing. The articles that you get, as far as links on Google are often the very technical articles, or they're old articles. They're 10 years old if it's a specific topic. So the idea would be to provide this not only to the medical community, but to the people at large who, now have to deal with a healthcare issue they never knew anything about.
Right. Well, thank you, Roger, for making this available to folks. It is such a tremendous resource. And I think what you heard here first, folks, this is the scoop, is that Roger Downey is not retiring anytime soon. He already has other ideas of ways that he wants to make myhealthcarereport.com even more valuable to you. Thank you, Roger, as always.
welcome. Thank you.
It's interesting to find out a little bit more about you, and we're so glad that you're a part of the show of Healthy Senior Living. Until we speak again, enjoy your day.
Thank you for listening to Healthy Senior Living with Smiles by Delivery, the premier mobile dental practice in Arizona. Catch the show live each week at this time or 24/7 anytime on demand on StarWorldWideNetworks.com.